Okay, welcome back to Unit 6, the digestive system. This video is all about the accessory organs. In the previous video, you guys learned about the alimentary canal, which is the big long tube that starts at the mouth and goes to the stomach and includes the small intestines and then turns into the large intestines and ultimately out the anus. That is one long tube. We call it the alimentary canal. But attached to this alimentary canal are all sorts of different organs. They're called accessory organs. And we're just going to review some of these accessory organs in this video. Some of the accessory organs that we'll be talking about today are the salivary glands. Your teeth are also considered an accessory organ. Your pancreas, liver, gallbladder. Okay, so let's first talk about the salivary glands. What's the purpose of the salivary glands? Just to provide water and moisture to the food. It also, though, contains enzymes and a few bacteria. The enzymes in your spit, in your saliva, specifically is called salivary amylase. And it's interesting that this enzyme that's in your spit actually begins the digestion process right in your mouth. So the food that we're eating immediately gets broken down to its smallest components by this enzyme, salivary amylase. Okay. There's three salivary glands. There's the parotid glands, which are located way in the back of your mouth. There's the submandibular glands, which are located right underneath your lower teeth, right along your jawline. And then there's the sublingual glands, which are found underneath your tongue. Here's another image. You can see how big the parotid gland is, again, located way in the back of your mouth. The submandibular glands, underneath your mandible. Oops, I highlighted the sublingual. Submandibular here, and sublingual is underneath your tongue. These organs have tiny little tubes that squirt out the saliva. If you were to dissect your cat, you can actually find them in your cat too. Your teeth are also considered an accessory organ. The job of your teeth is to chew. The fancy word for chewing is mastication. Do I need to say anything else about teeth right now? You don't need to know the individual teeth. You just need to know teeth are an organ that helps with the digestive process. So let's talk about the pancreas. The pancreas is an amazing organ because it has so many different jobs, and basically you cannot live without your pancreas. Your pancreas plays a huge role in the digestive system. It releases digestive enzymes. The enzymes are what break down the food into its smallest particles so that they can be absorbed into the bloodstream. When I say absorbed, I mean it when the food literally leaves the gut and goes into the bloodstream. And in order for food to be able to leave the gut and go into the bloodstream, it has to be broken down to its very smallest part. And the pancreas is what releases those enzymes that does that process. These enzymes, this pancreas, is connected to the duodenum or duodenum, tomatoes, and it also secretes an alkaline fluid. If you think about it, the duodenum is right after the stomach. The stomach is super acidic. So when all that acidic chyme comes into the small intestines, your pancreas comes to the rescue and releases this basic fluid to kind of neutralize the acidic chyme from the stomach. Now, that is a lot of things that the pancreas does, and that's just for the digestive end. The pancreas also releases a whole bunch of hormones, insulin, glucagon, which we'll talk about more in depth when we get to the endocrine system, which is Unit 12. Your liver is also considered part of the digestive system. It is the largest gland in your body. It sits right on the right side of your abdominal cavity, has four different sections, four different lobes. And the main job of the liver is to produce bile. Okay, so what is bile? Here's a picture of the liver. Bile is, again, created by the liver. It's made up of salts and dead red blood cells, which we call bilirubin. There's also a lot of cholesterol. Cholesterol is not necessarily a bad thing. I know it gets a bad rap with, the food industry and everything should be cholesterol-free this and low cholesterol that, but cholesterol actually serves a vital role in our body, and one of the main roles that cholesterol is used for is in bile. Okay, there's also some lipids and electrolytes, but what the bile does, this whole combination of salts and cholesterols and phospholipids and electrolytes, this bile that's made by the liver emulsifies fats. Okay, now that word emulsify just basically means it takes big old blobs of fat and turns them into itty bitty blobs so that these itty bitty blobs of fat can be absorbed into the bloodstream so that they can be broken down and used for energy and other various things. Without bile, fat would be too big to absorb, so it'd go right through you. Without bile, fat goes right through you, and you likely will have a little bit of diarrhea without bile. So what's the gallbladder do? So the way our digestive system works is that the liver makes the bile, and then it sends it to the gallbladder. And the gallbladder is just this little sac that sits right next to the liver, and the gallbladder stores the bile so that whenever you eat fat, the gallbladder squirts out a little bit of bile. However much, if you eat more fat, it squirts out a lot of bile. Eat a little bit of fat, it squirts out a little bit of bile. And it's just a storage site for bile. Okay, now this bile is introduced into the digestive system at the duodenum, just like the pancreas, and puts all the enzymes right there at the duodenum. And if the bile sits there too long, or if there is a weird, funky concentration of salts versus cholesterol, sometimes these stones can form inside your gallbladder called gallstone. It's just basically where the bile has solidified. Versus being a liquid, it turned into a solid and it forms literal rocks inside your gallbladder. Okay, so gross picture alert. Here's a picture of some gallstones. Ooh, pretty gross, right? This is like probably the most extreme case I've ever seen. But this is your gallbladder, again, just a little sac that sits right next to your liver that stores the bile. And for whatever reason, this person's bile solidified, turned into stones. Maybe the composition was wrong. Maybe it sat there too long. But basically, when this happens, the doctors take out your gallbladder. Pretty common procedure. When they take out your gallbladder, they connect the liver to the digestive system. You just have a smaller storage area for the bile. Okay, so this whole process from chewing to pooping, the entire process takes about 16 to 48 hours. Most of the time, the food spends in the small intestines because that's where the food is being broken down by the pancreatic enzymes, where the fat's being emulsified by the bile and it being absorbed into the bloodstream. If you think about it, we ingest about 2,000 milliliters of food a day, and we only poop out, defecate, 150. That's amazing. So the remaining 1,850 milliliters of stuff is absorbed into our bloodstream, into our body, where we utilize it for all sorts of various metabolic processes. So what happens with the individual organic compounds? Remember, there's three foods made up of three things: carbohydrates, fats, lipids. Carbohydrates have to be broken down into their monosaccharides. Remember that word? That's a simple sugar. Have to be broken down into monosaccharides for them to be introduced into the bloodstream. The way they're broken down into monosaccharides is in two places. First in the mouth by that salivary amylase, that's an enzyme within your mouth. And then the majority of carbohydrates are broken down to monosaccharides in your small intestines by those pancreatic enzymes, just more enzymes that continue the digestive process. Proteins, in order for them to be absorbed into the bloodstream, they have to be broken down to their smallest component, which are amino acids. Most of this digestion occurs in the stomach because there's a hydrochloric acid which breaks the proteins down and unravels them. But then also the small intestine finishes the job, continues the breakdown by releasing pancreatic enzymes specifically for those amino acid chains to break them down into individual or peptide bonds, two amino acids linked together. But ultimately, the acid from the stomach and the pancreatic enzyme from your pancreas um, together break down the proteins to their smallest components so that they can be absorbed into the bloodstream. Lastly, there's fats. Remember, fats, in order for them to be in their smallest components, they need to be broken down into glycerol and fatty acid chains. The way that fats are broken down is all in the small intestines. That bile, again created by the liver, stored in the gallbladder, squirted into the duodenum. These bile salts help emulsify large fats, break them down into small droplets, and then again, there's the pancreatic enzymes that further break it down into the smallest individual components. Okay, now last thing is that in your gut, in your large intestines, you have bacteria. This bacteria are basically cleaner uppers. They take care of the rest of the food that we cannot digest. They are good, that we want them. The more bacteria in your gut, the better, because their job is to uh, take all that undigestible foods, carbohydrates, and break them down and turn them into fecal matter. This process does create gas, hence why we release gas, but it also synthesizes some vitamins, B and K.